Welcome. It's the FIH Hockey Show. And today I've got two great guests. We've got Dan Strange, fresh from his commentating role in Antwerp. And I believe you're still there, Dan, enjoying the coffee and sunshine of Antwerp.
Yep, sightseeing day, hopefully today, and back to London this evening. Yeah,
fantastic. And you deserve it after, I don't know how many games you were commentating on the weekend, but it seemed like I was listening to your voice Saturday and Sunday throughout. We've also got Adrian Lock here, head coach to the Spanish women. Good morning to you, Adi.
Morning, Sarah. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. And thank you for taking the time to join us, because I understand you've got a really busy day ahead of you. So thank you for these moments you're going to share your wisdom. Before we start, big congratulations, I think, all round to Argentina women, who are the first team to be crowned FIH Pro League champions this year. We'll come to you first, Adi. Argentina, what were your thoughts on them this season?
Yeah, I mean, they've been good. We've talked kind of through the season how they're one of the teams that's probably had the most continuity. Obviously, they've had the change of coach with Fernando coming in, but the players are playing with quite a lot of continuity, a lot of experience. I think that's kind of helped them quite a lot. But they've been good. I mean, they've been good. I think they've continued progressing from where they were before. So I think they've clearly been the best team in the league this year. So I think it's a fair result, and I think it's going to put them in good stead for the upcoming World Cup as well.
Absolutely. I mean, Dan, you've seen Argentina on numerous occasions. What have been your impressions? They're a team that have definitely grown into the competition, aren't they?
Yeah, there's not much to really add to that. They've played fabulous 3D hockey. They've scored some amazing goals. They've done it with a smile on their face as well. You said about the new coach coming in and how it's allowed then also continuity through the season. They seem to me to be enjoying their hockey as a group. All the games I've done for them have been remotely, so I've been doing it, off the television. But I do follow quite a lot of their social media, and they seem to be a team that are enjoying how they play hockey together. There was a great clip that the FIH put up the other day of them finding out in their gym that they'd won the league. And they just seem to be enjoying it and having a good time. And that can only be a good thing going into the World Cup, because hopefully for them, that'll create momentum for them going in.
Yeah, I mean, the only question I was going to ask, and this is probably a stupid question, but they've been together a long time. They've been away from Argentina now for a long time, and will be until after the World Cup. Is there? Shane McAleese was talking about this last week. The fact that when you're away for a long time, it can cause one or two problems within the squad in terms of people missing home or just sort of running out of steam a little bit. Is there a danger of that, or do you think because they've got this momentum, it will just keep rolling on forwards? I'll come to you, Adi, on that one.
I mean, it's obviously a factor, and it obviously depends on what you're used to. So to a certain extent, I was talking to somebody about this to somebody the other day about the different kind of programs that there are and the amount of time that you're away from home. It might have been with Dan actually yesterday, I can't remember. And there's certain programs like our program, every time we get together, we're automatically away from home, but there's other programs where they can work together and still be at home. So, I mean, to a certain extent, it's what you're used to. And then the kind of processes that are put in place to take that into account. Obviously, the coaches and coaching staff and medical staff trying to take into account these things and make sure that it's an enjoyable environment. It's one of the things we've spoken before about with you, Sarah, about the Belgian men's team and the environment that there is there. And when you create the right environment, then everyone wants to be there, and then these problems are a lot easier to overcome. But obviously, when you're an extended period away from home, away from partners, from friends, from family, it can weigh on you. Boredom can creep in. Monotony can creep in. And it's a question if you've taken the right measures to take this into account beforehand, and also to do other things apart from hockey. I mean, it's important to be enjoying life when you're away from home, and when you're away from home with the hockey team, it's not just training, it's not just playing games, and it's not spending all day every day with your teammates. Sometimes you need time to be alone, or to go for a walk with yourself, or to go with some people and then another day with other people, and just to get that different variety. But I think it's something that a lot of teams are going to have to look at over the summer. A lot of Australia and New Zealand, for example, I understand, are going to have long tours with the World Cup and then the Commonwealth Games straight afterwards. So it's the same thing, and we've heard about it in the past with cricket teams. I know with the England team, especially, it came in the press. Also, I'm kind of more connected to England teams than others, but with their bubble, especially during COVID and how they struggle with it, and being away from family and kids, especially players that have got kids. I mean, that's tough to be away from your kids for an extended period of time. It's something that I find as a head coach is one of the hardest things. It's that getting the balance between being away from home a third of the year, but being in contact with the family at the same time and my kids at the same time. It's one of the hardest aspects of being a head coach, I find. So players will be exactly the same situation. So the better it's dealt with beforehand and thought about beforehand, and the better the solutions that would have been put in place.
I mean, it's so important, isn't it, the quality of your your sort of backroom staff as well, because if you've got, if it's just you and your players, it'd be a very different situation. But if you've got a good team around you as well, who can perhaps just spread the load a little bit, that's really important as well. I mean, Dan, you will have seen all sorts of teams and how they deal with this sort of thing. What are your thoughts on that issue?
The one thing I've seen this weekend, and it's been really nice to actually see a lot of teams here this weekend, because obviously in Antwerp there was 6 teams. Once or twice, and this wasn't something that I've actually seen from the Spanish team, but I have seen it with a few other teams, where some of the players end up just wandering around not in team kit just at certain times. Now, normally when you go to this sort of thing, from the moment the players step out their room to the moment they go back into their rooms, they're in team kit. And I sat and, as Adi said, we had a chat at breakfast the other day, and all the Spanish players coming in team kit. Once or twice, I've seen some players not in team kit. I think with that long process Adi's talking about, that sort of thing, almost allowing players to wear normal clothes and not be branded as a player for Belgium, a player for Spain, a player for India, whoever it may be, USA as well here, almost allows them mentally to potentially switch off a bit. And they can't step away from it completely because, as you said then, Adi, they're in a bubble like the England cricket team who had issues with that. But like you said, it's about creating within the process you're building and the time frame you're working to, almost times where players can switch off, whether that be go and do some sightseeing, which has nothing to do with hockey, or take the team out of the public eye completely. But I think it was interesting to see that, because you don't normally see players just wandering around, without their team kits on. But I've seen it probably 3 or 4 times this weekend. And I do think that it may be that the team's becoming a bit more relaxed post-pandemic because of the time frames they've got to spend together. And it might just also be some of the individuals sort of going, I just want to step away. It might also be a complete coincidence. And, I'm just picking up on something that's got absolutely nothing to do with any of this, which is not the first time.
Well, actually,
it's happened before.
What actually happened, Dan, is that their team coaches said, if you don't wear your team kit, then Dan Strange won't be able to ask you any questions because he won't know if it's you or not. Yeah,
but at the point that we're talking about, I actually walked along for about 20 minutes having a really long, nice chat with the person. So there we go.
So talking about the hockey in Antwerp, Adi, Spain, you played USA twice. Those matches, I mean, the first one, it was a 1-1 draw, and then you took shootout. Second one, 3-2, but it was a little bit squeaky pants time, wasn't it? Do you want to just talk us through those 2 matches?
Yeah, they were interesting games. They were different games, I think, to the other games we've played so far this year. In terms of, we dominated quite a lot of the possession in both of the games, but struggled to create. We created a lot of opportunities as well, but maybe we struggled just to create slightly better opportunities to be able to score kind of more easily. And as the games went on, that kind of created, I think, the kind of pressure kind of builds up, and that can especially in the first game, kind of led to frustration. You can see how the game developed. We started the game well. The third quarter, we started getting frustrated, and you can see how the players react, and they just wanted to get to the opposing D as quickly as possible, and we lost kind of quality. And then we talked about it, and the fourth quarter got a little bit better again. But I think especially with the younger players, but and the relatively inexperienced players, and to actually learn about yourselves was really interesting as well, because say, well, this happens, and what can we do about it? And I thought the second game was, obviously it was the same kind of game basically, and similar things happened, but we controlled it slightly differently. I thought we kept our heads on a little bit better, apart from maybe the last 5-10 minutes of the third quarter. And we just kept going until the ball eventually got in. I think it's just sometimes it's just a question of faith of keeping going. And obviously, the States were good defensively. They had to be good defensively as well, because they spent most of the time or more time defending than attacking, I think. And again, the change in mentality when you've got the ball a lot of the time and then suddenly you have to defend. It's like in that first half of the second game, they got to RD, I think, twice. And then I think sometimes we struggle. I think we struggle. I think teams in general who have a lot of possession struggle suddenly to switch on to sufficient defensive intensity on those moments, and they come, and then it costs you. I think I've seen this before, or it's been talked about before a little bit in football. Maybe in teams like Pep Guardiola, teams that have a lot of possession, then the opposition teams get there twice, 2 or 3 times, and suddenly score a goal out of the blue. But I think it must be to do with the mentality of having so much possession, and then the kind of having to switch on to defence. And I think we learned a lot over the weekend, basically. I mean, for us, it was a fantastic experience. And the last game was brilliant. I mean, also over the weekend, we've had a shootouts, which obviously the shootouts we need to practice. It's all major tournaments at the end of the day have shootouts in them, and you either go forwards in the tournament or you go home. So shootouts, to practice them in a real life situation is great. We had losing with 10 minutes to go, whatever, how long there was left when the United States went off. We played without the goalkeeper. We had corners. We played against 9 players. And so different experiences that don't happen every day. So it helps build the team and to learn from these experiences and to be better prepared for the World Cup, which at the end of the day is most teams' focus is on preparing for that World Cup and trying to get to the World Cup in the best conditions possible. Obviously, we scored a few more goals earlier, then it would have been a slightly more relaxing weekend. But
but you'd have had far less learning points to come from that, wouldn't you?
Exactly.
I mean, it's a really interesting point you make, because as I was watching, the goals not going in, and the almost the frustration levels were palpable across the screen even. And I'll come to you in a minute, Dan, because I'm sure you could feel that too. But it hadn't occurred to me that actually that was a really, really good learning point for your team, because there will be situations exactly like that. And the fact that they now have within their mindset the fact that in the 58th and 59th minute they can come back and score 2 goals. That's a very, very big confidence boost for them going into the World Cup, isn't it? But Dan, your take on those 2 games?
Really interesting games. The thing that also came across to me was Ada's team played against a team that actually this weekend had a very efficient penalty corner setup. They scored from the one that Hoffman took. It forced a really good save, actually, and then Ali Marshall scored to make it 1-0 in the opening game. And then yesterday, Maatsen scored from the spot, but again, Hoffman scored from the top of the circle. And that's something that this weekend, if you look statistically from when I was looking through, they had one of the most efficient penalty corner routines of the whole weekend. And I suppose in terms you said about scenarios there, at the World Cup, you'd hope you'd come up against teams with good. Well, no, you probably don't hope you'd come up against teams with an efficient penalty corner routine. But at a World Cup, you would hope that there are teams that are firing on those fronts. That's a great scenario for you to be in. I think defensively, as you said, the US, they just battled really well. A note on the keepers as well from them. Rizzo in the shootout was very, very good indeed. But like you say, I thought the way that Flo Admundson played in that game, and her response to having the initial shot saved, it just her coolness of sort of her thought process was really, really obvious. She just calmly saw where the ball was and she responded quicker than the goalkeeper. I think it was a difficult weekend for you, but also you're slightly on a hiding to nothing in that way, because as you said, you had so much possession for Spain. We've all seen those sort of games where you have 70% possession and you just can't stick the ball in the back of the net. But then Berguna Garcia did in the end, and that was very positive. They weren't sort of really aesthetically pleasing goals, which is almost not a bad thing. You almost want to score some just gritty, what was the total range? She probably scored about half a yard over the 2 goals, I think, in the end, but she did well on the first one to keep it in play. So in that way, it's taken those positives away.
And Barrios broke a duck as well, which is great, because that needed to happen as well. So that was really good. Adi, just a quick question, sort of more generally, but sort of around that game. A lot of people talk about the fact, you've got one match on the day one, and then there's a quick turnaround for day two, and that things can be tweaked and looked at in that time. Realistically, how much learning can take place from one game to another? Because you can't overload the players with info, can you? I mean, you probably could have made 30 coaching points from day one to day two, but you can't expect players to take on that much information.
No, I mean, it's quite a difficult balance to get for us at this time, because we're building a relatively new team within a relatively short amount of time. We've got the World Cup around the corner. So there's a lot of information that we want to be getting across, which isn't ideal in our pre-match kind of scenario. So we probably are, especially on the first game, overloading the players with a lot more information than we would usually do. But we want to keep learning from weekend to weekend. So before the first game, we went over the second Chinese game, second game of China for the week before.
Yeah.
And for the first game, we came into it also from training for the day before and for the physical loading that we're looking at for the World Cup. So probably a little bit flat or a little bit tired in the first game, to be fair. That's what the players felt. And they had probably excessive information, but generally it would be a lot more reduced, and we're not hardly looking at the opposition at all, because we're just still trying to get to grips with our own game and what we need to be improving. And for the second game, generally, we try and be a lot more, what's the word? Less information. There's a better word than that, but I can't think of it. I can't think of it. Concise, maybe that's the word. And so for the second game, we just looked at at the attacking things. I mean, a lot of our build-up play was good. Our defence has evolved a lot since we only really started working on our defence before the China games. This year we haven't really done much until that point. And so there's been a serious evolution in the four games we played. So I'm pretty happy with that. The mistakes a lot of the time are individual mistakes. And so also it's easy to talk about individual things in team meetings. And so there's lots of points, but a lot of the points are individual points with specific players, not team points. And we try and separate that. So a lot of the individual points of individual defence, individual aspects, technical, tactical, whatever they may be, to do it separately. So the team meetings really are about team aspects, and that way it's a lot more, I think it's a lot more fluid, and the players receive the necessary information, and they're not hearing about, well, this other player's doing that and that player's doing that. It doesn't really affect them. So we're probably overloading more than we'd like to, and then towards the World Cup we'll reduce it and do more individual information about the opposition teams and specific danger players and things like that, and then how we adapt our own playing model to the team that we've got against us. So this weekend, we've probably been a bit over the top.
What is the next few weeks for you? Because obviously, I mean, I presume the players will have a bit of a break now, will they? And then you'll get together again. They will get it, but not yet. We play. We're together for another week now. We played New Zealand 3 times in Terrassa. So New Zealand, I think they arrived yesterday. I think I saw on social media. I should already know as well, but I think they're there. So we play 3 games against New Zealand, which are our final kind of practice matches. Bit of fine tuning there, and then we have, I think, 5 days off, 6 days off, 5 or 6 maybe, and then we get together in Terrassa again. I think it's 4 days before the World Cup starts on a Monday. I think the World Cup starts on a Friday, possibly. I'm kind of going day by day at the moment. You can tell, frankly. Exciting. but I know it's important. We always try and give the players about a week off before the tournament starts. Just so to get to the tournament really fresh. And obviously it's been very intense last few weeks, traveling into Belgium twice, moving around. Now we're in Madrid, tomorrow in Terrassa, and just to have kind of just settle down a little bit and assimilate everything we've done, assimilate selection, and then get fresh for the tournament. And it's a long tournament as well. I mean, it's almost a 3-week tournament. So with the
3 or 4 days prior as well. We have another game against Japan before we start as well. So so I think we're on course to get there how we want to be.
Brilliant. And obviously you'll learn a little bit about New Zealand, which will be good as well. Let's move to the other women's game that took place in Antwerp, Dan. Belgium versus India, 2 matches, 2 very different matches, actually. And Belgium will be the far happier team, I'd imagine, at the end of it all.
Going by the Belgian people I spoke to last night, yes. There were a lot of conversations going on about that was the best they'd seen them play. That was really positive going into the World Cup. I even heard one prediction that Belgium are going to make the final, which was, fantastic that someone's so willing to, nail their colours to the mast on that one. If it happens, fair play. I don't think the weekend's fixtures necessarily in that way were something that, I said it on commentary. I think Belgium fans need to temper their excitement at 5-0 because I don't think it was the real Indian team that you'll see at the World Cup. I also don't think Indian fans need to be, throwing the baby out with the bathwater, as they say, because again, there were so many changes in Yannicka Schotman's side because, as Adi said there, all the coaches are looking at and finalising their selections, and it was clear that India, having had a long time off in the Pro League, wanted just to look at other players. Akshata came in and a few others yesterday. Belgium, they do look good. Like they actually pieced together some really nice goals this weekend, and they hit India on the break twice very early in the game, which was very clinical. I think they've got some players in really good form as well. Engelbert, Ellen, and Michelle Stroik is a very good player. But I don't think it was suddenly Belgium, flying up the rankings in terms of the World Cup, in terms of who you're looking at, because in real terms, they're so close to teams like Spain and England and India and all these teams around the sort of below probably Netherlands and Argentina. But it was a good performance for them to sign off on home soil, really.
Your colleague, Simon Mason, was talking he was commentating in Germany, but he spoke about the German team being a team of disruptors, the German women being a team of disruptors. Are Belgium in the same bracket? Because they are a team that on their day can be, as we saw, can be very, very good when they get momentum, but they can also be not so good.
I think there's 5 teams like that, or 4 or 5 teams like that.
We're putting Spain in that, aren't we, as well?
We're putting Spain in that. We're putting India in that. We're putting England in it when they get it right.
Yeah.
And that's where I think this Women's World Cup is a really exciting one because, yes, I think Netherlands and Argentina are probably in a better place than everyone else at the moment. But there are teams that can disrupt. And Spain are one of them. Belgium are one of them. Germany, I only saw the highlights, but they went 2-0 up with one of the funniest penalty strokes I've seen in ages, where Wienendahl went diving off to the post and Zimmerman just sort of went, thanks very much.
Right down the middle.
But yeah, she was like, okay, fine, there's the whole goal to aim at. But with that, Germany are like that. I think Belgium are becoming more like that. And I think what they'll become is, as Raul does his thing, Sjord said on commentary the other day, Raul's first thought completely as a coach is defence. And as he gets that tactical awareness in terms of the defensive structure in Belgium, it will almost give them a bigger platform to work off, I think, which, as you say, will make them disruptive. Because on your day then, if you have a good day and you end up in a semi-final against one of those 2 top teams and you fire and you beat them, you're in a final, then anything's possible.
Well, we saw it in 2018. We saw it with Adi's team. We saw it with the Irish team. On paper, probably shouldn't have been the bronze medalists and the silver medalists, but actually disrupted, but then got momentum and kept going. And that was brilliant to see those teams do exactly that. Just going back to your team, Adi, and the World Cup, how much, I know it's a different squad and we're 4 years on, but somewhere in people's minds, is there a confidence from what you did in 2018 and the fact that, look, when we get on the big stage, we can do that? Do you still live on that a little bit?
I think when you get a good result, you know that you're aware of what's possible. I think one of the things we talked about directly after the World Cup and winning the bronze medal was that we're not the 3rd best team in the world, and there's one stage, one decision, and one action in play that made a difference, and the final shootout against Belgium that we were awarded a free hit favourably. in other situations, maybe we wouldn't have had that free hit. And these things that are sometimes out of your control as a coach and as a team, that went our way, and suddenly we were in a quarterfinal. If that had gone against us, that one action in the shootouts, we could have not made it to the quarterfinals, and we would have been the same team. We would have done the same preparation. We would have had the same World Cup, and we wouldn't be anywhere near where we were. And so really small things can make a big difference. And then it's a question of sometimes being in a position, having done the preparation, that you can then take advantage of those moments. In the last 2 Olympic cycles, for example, obviously Holland have been dominant, but no other team has really been regular in the big tournaments. It's not like Argentina, for me, have probably been the second best team in the world for the last 6, 7, 8 years, but they haven't come second in all the major competitions. Australia have been second or third in the world for the last 8 years, and they haven't been second or third in the tournaments either. I mean, your ranking and the quality of the team doesn't influence the end result. The Rio winners were both 7th ranking, GB and Argentina men. They were 7th in the world rankings. And so there is a lot of equality in terms of, again, I'm not very good with the words this morning, am I? Same teams have got a very similar level. And so a lot of the games are very competitive, and anyone can beat anyone. We've seen it at the weekend where, I don't know where we were in the rankings, we're about 7th, I think. And the United States are lower, and China are lower. I think China are 12 and the States are 14 or something like that. Yeah, but 14, they're incredibly competitive games anyway. I think that the top 60, especially in women's hockey, I think the top 16 in the world, anyone can beat anyone on a given day. South Africa, I think, a low-ranked team. The last time we played them, we beat them 1-0, scoring the last 2 minutes again, but they could have easily beaten us as well. There's a huge amount of equality. So anything can happen in the World Cup. And I think when you go into the World Cup, you've got that added pressure, you've got expectation. The rankings create a certain expectation in terms of, oh, we're better than this team, or the other team are better than this team, and that can create certain mentalities which are dangerous. So how the teams prepare for this, and how they prepare for each game, how they prepare to react when they're winning, when they're losing against a better team, a worse team, whatever, it all influences. So I think that's one of the good things about the tournaments, and it makes it exciting in the knockout phases, because the knockout phases really are anything can happen, and it's unusual that a team completely dominates. Maybe 1 or 2 of the quarterfinals, maybe a team will dominate, but anything can happen. And that's why I said there's always going to be shootouts. In all the major competitions, shootouts have played a big part in who gets through to the final stages, and that's got nothing to do with who's better than who in the world rankings. It's a question of who does it well on the day, and maybe the ball rolls in their favor sometimes, and that's it. So that's what makes, I think, incredibly exciting. And before the 2018 World Cup, I know I personally had this feeling that anything could happen, not just for us, for any of the teams. And it was quite like that. And this year even more so, because of the lack of games. I mean, the teams that are playing the pro leagues that are incredibly privileged to be able to play in international hockey, but there's a lot of teams, as far as I'm aware, I haven't seen a lot of games for Japan or Korea. Australia and New Zealand have played against themselves, and that's about it. Obviously, you look for other options, especially in women's hockey, play against their men's teams, for example. But what we found before the Olympics, because we played virtually all our hockey against men's teams preparing for Tokyo, is it also distorts the reality, because there's a difference in playing against men's teams against women's teams. And that sometimes distorts your own way of playing, and suddenly you play against women and you're suddenly doing things that you haven't been able to do for half a year. And it helps to play games, but sometimes it doesn't help to be ready to compete. So there's different teams. Again, Canada, as far as I'm aware, haven't played a lot of games. So South Africa haven't played a lot of games. So there's some teams that have been playing and they've got that match practice. And there's other teams that haven't played. There's some teams that everyone's seen because we're all on TV and on the videos that we share, and other teams that we haven't seen play for 6 months. So, I mean, it creates uncertainty, it creates different dynamics, and it all sets up a pretty interesting tournament, to be fair.
Pretty interesting tournament. And I mean, we talk about anything can happen. Dan, I think yesterday we witnessed a game between Belgium men and India men where it did feel like anything could happen at any point in that game. We're sort of coming up for time, so we do need to talk about those two Belgium India matches. Tell me about them, because you were the excitement levels coming out of the commentary box.
That's unlike me. I never get excited in commentary. No, the first game for me was I've said it's the best game I've ever commentated on, and I stick to that. Actually, I think it was that. I don't mean necessarily in terms of the goals. I mean in terms of the intensity that was clear. It was the tempo that both teams were playing at was unbelievable. It was like two heavyweight boxers just having a slugfest at times. But I don't mean that they were getting untechnical. It was a very technically good game. Sunday's game was more of a game of chess at times. And the tempo was lower, and the way the teams went about it was different. Obviously, Artie van Doren injured his ankle on day one. I hope he's okay. It seems like it's going to be a sort of medium-term time that he's off for. Fingers crossed it isn't long. The way the Belgians responded to losing him was really impressive. We gave Artu de Sluve the player of the match yesterday. And almost in the questioning, they were like, "Oh, did you think you were deserving of this?" And it was like, I thought the way he stepped in and did Van Doren's job and just ran the show. In the difference, I think, for me, from say Tokyo or going back to 2018 when both those teams played, was how India now look like they can genuinely mix it with Belgium. And if the two teams played 10 times, it's pretty much going to be a 50-50 split. And both teams also have players that can come into their 18s. I mean, the fact that Vivek nearly put that ball in the top right-hand corner past Vincent Van Asch with, 20 seconds to go. I've learned not to say anymore that's it, the game's over inside the last 30 seconds, because Jugsy occasionally sends me messages having a go at me about how late in the game I make predictions, and that I need to be very careful. But I think the way the spirit India showed this weekend, because they were always having to fight back through the majority of games, was impressive. Those two teams are very exciting going into their World Cup in early 2023. Which we could probably spend another hour talking about if we wanted to. But I thought they were fantastic games. Just a really good advert for the Pro League, really, and for hockey. It was just play one card in the first match as well, one green card, because no one had time to.
I was going to say, the intensity of the game, nobody had a chance to do anything wrong. They just had to keep going, didn't they? It was incredible to watch.
Yeah,
it was. I mean, a fantastic couple of matches. And for anyone who didn't know the results, it was 2-2, and then I think India won the shootout, didn't they? 5-4 on the first day, and then it was
3-3 and 5-4 with
that's right, yeah,
three penalty strokes for Hendricks, and he put all three the same way. And eventually, Srijay said, "I'm not having this again." And
and then yesterday it was 3-2 to Belgium. But like you, Dan, I'd actually started to write my report saying that Belgium had put it to bed at 3-1, and then the goal went in. It was like, oh no, it's all getting a little bit exciting now. The final matches to talk about really took place over in Germany, and I don't know if either of you managed to, in amongst everything, have a quick look at those. But basically, we saw the Netherlands putting out virtually their A side this time, although Eva de Hoed was hopping around the edge of the pitch. Obviously, she's in the squad as well. But I thought they were clinical against Germany. Did you see any of it, Dan? Did you see any of the match?
I saw bits and bobs. I saw that Germany obviously went into a good lead, 2-0 on the first day. The Netherlands the thing with the Netherlands is I've not seen a season where they go behind so much. But then also for other teams, it's slightly worrying because they just have the character and the spirit to fight back all the time.
Yeah.
And for Germany to be 2-0, how often does a German team throw away a 2-0 lead? I mean, in world sport, full stop, it just doesn't really happen. But because it's the Dutch, they can fight. But I think the level of depth in the Dutch women's hockey, it just is incredible. I mean, when they can select however many different squads they have throughout this season. Germany, when they, like you said earlier, when they string it together, it's great. I didn't manage to see yesterday's highlights, but day one, they seemed to play exciting hockey. They scored some nice goals, but then you've got the likes of Liedewij Velten back in, and what's she doing? She's scoring goals, which is great for the neutral, probably not great for AD and all the coaches.
Watching those two matches, I mean, the first match, absolutely, Germany went ahead, but it was against the run of play, which was, and you spoke earlier about efficiency on penalty corners. The Dutch weren't efficient, and that was their problem in that first match. And then yesterday, I felt that Germany looked as though they'd run out of steam a little bit. But they've got, it's a shame because they've got such exciting players. You know, Charlotte Stappenhorst, very, very exciting. Jette Fleschutz is absolutely astonishing and really, really quick. Anna Schroeder, as always. I mean, if Germany are a disruptor, I think she's probably the biggest disruptor of them all. There's some lovely players there. But I thought yesterday, in particular, the Netherlands looked a class apart. The men's game, that was a different matter altogether. I mean, on day one, the Netherlands, flowing, fluid, efficient, beautiful, beautiful hockey with some lovely goals. Thought they were going to do exactly the same thing yesterday, and then Germany suddenly got this amazing roll of momentum and turned it around completely, and we're an absolute roller coaster of a team. Again, I don't know if you saw the highlights, but the moment seemed to be when Theo Hendricks found Ludwig up in the circle. He's a centre back. He should never have been there. Found with a lovely, lovely pass, and Ludwig put it away, and that was momentum change. So, the biggest disruptors.
That was the comment that Simon Mason made to me about he's never seen a bigger momentum swing in a game. The Dutch in the first half, and then the Germans turn around. Can I just make a comment? Because AD, I want you to get your team practicing this. Watch Mats Grambusch's goal, penalty corner, opening game, Germany, Netherlands men. It's what would be described in club hockey as the special. It's where it gets injected to the person stood as the left slip, and he's just rocketed it in the bottom left-hand corner. I think it's got Jean-Tel Hine all over that, hasn't it? You know, it's that's the one thing that Ade is thinking. Don't give the game away, Dan. I don't actually know if you've been practicing that, but watch it back. You never see that in international hockey. And so the Dutch number one runner just ran straight out and suddenly goes, "Oh, the ball's over there." But I mean, to then finish that takes a lot of nerve as well. I think the way the Dutch are playing at the moment, they're incredibly exciting. We've seen it a couple of times, though, the momentum switch when they're ahead. Argentina did it to them. I think that's probably your own Del May's biggest worry at the moment, is they can pull teams apart for times, but it's how you then get that consistency through the game, because other teams seem at times to work them out. And clearly that happened with Germany yesterday, where they scored 4 unanswered goals against them.
Yeah, they've got a history of it, haven't they? Because I think, didn't they concede quite late in the game to South Africa as well? They had a really easy sort of first couple of halves, and then a couple of late goals. And I think they've done that a few times. But the point that was being made in commentary is that Jerome Delmay has got them a lot quicker now as well. They've always played very efficient and almost graceful hockey, and now it's being played at a absolute, a high force and high pace. And I guess it's whether they can sustain that right to the end of each match. But it's been good talking to you both. We've run out of time as per usual. There's a couple more weekends or weeks of Pro League left. But AD, have you enjoyed it? Have Spain enjoyed the Pro League?
Yeah, it's been fantastic playing the games, having quality games week in, week out throughout the season has been awesome. It's been a great experience to be part of it. It's been really useful to having a relatively new team to learn week in, week out. So it's been fantastic being part of it, and hopefully we will be able to be part of it again in the future. Obviously next year we're not in it because we're only here as invitees, if you like, just for this year. So we have to earn our way in again. And Australia and New Zealand come back next year. So we have a tournament at the end of the year. So hopefully we can do well in that tournament. I think it's in Spain. Well, it is in Spain at the end of the year in December. And hopefully we can qualify and be in it in the future. But I mean, it's stiff competition that we're against. There's 8 teams that all want to be in it. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it's been fantastic, and I'd really like to be in it again.
Well, I, for one, hope you are, because I've enjoyed watching Spain. Really, really exciting team to watch. Dan, thank you again for your input. I'll be listening to you for the next 2 weeks, I'm sure, and then we'll see you back on the show. I'm only on the Rotterdam games. I'm on the Rotterdam games. That's my season. 51 matches and I'm done for the season. Brilliant. Thanks very much indeed, both of you. Thanks. Check it out.